All right. Welcome to the 5th episode of the Greatest People You've Never Met podcast. Thank you so much for all the support through the first 4. Episode 4 came out today as the time of this recording, and the feedback has been great, so we're excited. Thank you all so much for that. Today in studio, we have Amy Ross. Amy is a Arizona dry bar owner. I think her story is pretty unique, and she's obviously built a very successful career through that. So I wanted to introduce her to all of you. So Amy, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you spending some time with me.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for asking and having me.
Yeah. So I guess the first thing I like to do when we get into it is, title of the pod is Greatest People You've Never Met. And people that follow this, especially my people, have certainly not met you. So
Right.
Give me a quick synopsis of who is Amy Ross.
Oh, wow. Who is Amy Ross? I think Amy Ross is fun. Amy Ross, I'm the local dry bar girl, right?
Yeah.
Like I brought dry bar to Arizona before anybody even knew what dry bar was. My background was not hair,
Right.
but it was cosmetics. So I had that background in the beauty industry. And when the first dry bar opened in Brentwood about a dozen years ago, I saw it, I read about it, nobody knew about it, and I just knew I had to get involved. And here we are almost, 11 and a half years later, and I thought I'd have one little shop, and we've got 6 in the Valley and, plans to do more.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into that background a little bit. So the cosmetics world, is that what you got into fresh out of school and was like, this is me, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, it's funny. I was that little girl that used to watch her mom, her grandma actually, with her eyelashes, right? She'd put them on one eyelash at a time with, her long red nails, which I'm channeling her red nails today, obviously. And I was always intrigued by makeup and fashion. And, when I was at ASU, I got involved and worked at the Clinique counter. And I just never thought that I could have a career in beauty, but it blossomed. So
Right.
after school, I became a manager and I became an account coordinator and I became an executive. And I ended up through my career with the Estee Lauder companies growing and moving. I lived, here locally. I moved to San Diego. I was in Los Angeles. I was in San Francisco, which is where I ended up meeting my husband, and eventually coming back here. And, I always loved that beauty industry. I took a little break when our son was born, but realized I'd be a better mom if I worked.
Sure.
And that was when we were in LA and I saw Dry Bar and I just knew I had to get involved.
Yeah.
But, I always had that passion for beauty.
Right. So for the people back in especially small town Midwest, explain what the dry bar is. Because
Absolutely.
when I first met Ton and she told me, I was so baffled that
Right.
was even a thing, right? So could you do me that?
Oh, yeah. No, I remember like when I first was telling my family about Dry Bar, because nobody even knew what it was then, right? It wasn't like a brand. They were like, wait, what? They do what?
Mm-hmm.
So, at Dry Bar, we do, no cuts, no color, just blow dries. So, you come in, you get your hair washed. You can get a scalp massage. You can get a deep conditioning treatment. And then we're going to style your hair for you. So we're going to blow dry it. We might curl it. We might put it in a braid. We have a lookbook and you can look at the signature styles and we will give you one of those styles. Or if if there's a magazine photo of, I don't know, Justin Bieber's wife, Hailey Bieber, right? You're like, I want my hair to look like this, or I want J-Lo hair, or a picture of yourself on your phone when you're like, I looked really hot in this picture. Can you make me look like this? We're going to do that, right? We're going to build that confidence. You're going to come in and you're going to leave just feeling like $1 million.
Right. So your clientele base, it's very wide, right?
Very.
You have some very high-end clients that are extremely well-known and then just average girls that walk in off the street from bachelorette parties in town
Totally.
to whatever, right?
Yeah.
So how did you know your first shop was at the Quarter?
It was Scottsdale Quarter, yeah.
Okay. So when you brought Dry Bar to AZ,
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like you said, nobody knew about it, right?
No.
So how did you, what was the thought process in bringing it here?
It's interesting. So I was living in Scottsdale at the time, and Scottsdale Quarter was just being built.
Mm-hmm.
And they were putting in retail there that I thought would have a similar client base. And it sort of seemed like a natural fit. And we just kind of went for it. And, knock on wood, it was a good choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Was it strategically placed? Like, did you want to be in the quarter, or did you just want to be in Scottsdale in general?
We wanted to be in the quarter, and the quarter wanted dry bar as well.
Sure.
So it was sort of a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you are expanding, you touched on you now have 6, hoping for more. Are those strategically placed out, or is it more just like you said, like somebody maybe reaches out to you? I know, business is booming out here and everything, right? So are they calling Amy Ross, or is Amy Ross saying, no, I want to be in Chandler, I want to be in Tempe?
Right. I think it depends on the year, and it depends on the location. So after we opened Scottsdale Quarter, we had a lot of feedback from our customers. Can you come to Arcadia, right?
Sure.
Like, they really wanted more of that Phoenix customer. So we started looking around, and when you're looking at location, it's not just location. Got to look at parking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, where's your customer going to park? Because that was one of the issues that our customers early on at the quarter didn't like. They didn't like having to park in a parking garage,
Sure.
right? And we had moved here from San Francisco, and so at the time, and I was like, a parking garage, what's the big deal, people?
Yeah.
Like, it's shaded. It's going to be 110 degrees today. Be thankful it's covered.
Yeah.
But that was some of the feedback we got. So we knew when we moved down to that Arcadia, Phoenix area, we wanted to have an easier parking situation for our clients. So, we did that at 32nd Street in Camelback, where there was more ample parking, no parking garage. And that was a strategic choice that we made based on customer feedback.
Sure.
As we continued to grow, we were in the Phoenician Spa, and the Phoenician Spa wanted us,
Sure.
right? We knew we needed to get into the East Valley, going down to Santan Village. That was from customer feedback. You need a location out this way. And we had looked there over the years, and we never found the right spot. And finally we did. Mm-hmm. So it just sort of depends on the location, and down in Tempe, I would have never told you in the middle of a pandemic, we would have opened a location, right? But there was a landlord down there that really wanted dry bar. And I was like, okay, and I'm a Sun Devil. And so, where the dry bar is, that used to be the club we used to go to. So I figured that had some pretty good juju, right? So we went for it, and I was down there today, and it's ASU graduation this week, and it's so awesome. To your point, we have, our customers up in Scottsdale. We have, our location at Scottsdale and Lincoln, right in the middle of Paradise Valley. And then I've got my girls down at ASU. So it's a wide range of customers, and each shop has been very unique. And whether it was driven by customers, by my wanting to look in that area, or by landlord opportunity.
Right. So I think the thing that not surprises me the most, but is really intriguing to me, is that 1 year, everything was based on customer feedback, which is awesome. And that's obviously how you're going to grow a good business, right? But your guys' I feel like the business model is driven to such a niche clientele, right? Like you're targeting a small market of people. So how did you, essentially go all in on these markets and not just say, okay, well, Santan Valley people just drive up here, or you know what I mean? Like, how did you decide, yes, this is for sure a good spot for us?
Yeah, honestly, we look at a lot of demographics. We've got, a great broker, and you look at like businesses, right? Like what's around and what's been there a while, right? Like, are there other beauty concepts? Is there that big famous, workout place, right? Like the workout wear, like, are they there, right? Mm-hmm. Like, the high-end grocer, are they there? Like, what are the concepts that are there? And do we think that our customer is there as well?
Right.
So I think a lot of co-tenancy that we look at, as well as just like advice from, our broker. And honestly, sometimes you just got a gut feeling too. You're like, okay, this will be good.
Right.
So, yeah.
So how have you been successful in growing the business? Is it a lot of, because you don't see dry bar ads places, right? And it's a national chain, they are all over. So how has, we'll get into what this market has done, but how have you been able to grow this market into what it really is?
Right. I think it comes down to our number one core value, and that's the experience, right? And I say this time and time again to my managers, to our employees, and to our customers, right? Like, it's about the experience for our customer, but it's also about the experience for our employee, right? Mm-hmm. Because people have to like where they go to work, right? Like, and so if you have people that are your advocates, whether it's your customer or your employee, you're going to be successful.
Right.
So, first and foremost, I say that it's the experience. And then early on, grassroots, right? Like every single mommy group that asked me for a donation for their silent auction, I was like, okay, here's a blow up for you and a blow up for you. It's like throwing blowouts everywhere. And we are very involved in the community.
Yeah.
I'm on a lot of charity boards and involved in the community. And it's really just getting out there and really being your own champion and telling people what you do. And I think when somebody comes into Dry Bar and they leave and they feel great about themselves, they're going to tell somebody else.
Right.
And it's just that word of mouth. It really gets you out there.
Yeah, for sure. So being it is such a, I guess like a personal experience, right? It's something that a person would definitely just do for themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about making yourself feel better, right? How many of those people do you see? Like, what's the return rate on your customers?
Oh, yeah. No, we've got a great membership program, right? So therein lies, the proof, right? Like we just got back from a big national conference and all of our locations are in the top 10 in the entire company for membership growth. So I think that shows you that that's how we get them to come back, right? They're so loyal to us. They love our membership. Like Scottsdale Quarter is number one in the entire company for membership sales. So it's creating that experience and getting them to come back because they see value, right? They're leaving, they feel great, and they can't wait to come back.
Right. So you talked a little bit about opening a shop in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
Walk me through that because
Yeah.
obviously, it's something that I want to talk about, just like the impacts on your business in general.
Yeah.
But let's just talk about opening that new Tempe location.
Right. Yeah. When we got the call that they were interested, I looked at Matt, my husband, and I was like, wait, what? You want to do what now? I'm like, are we even allowed to, what's the rule today? Right.
Right.
So, we looked at it and we had a great connection with the landlord and we, talked with him, we talked with our broker, we talked with Dry Bar, and we thought we knew it was a great space.
Yeah.
Right. Honestly, it was a space that because we're at the Watermark, which is right there at the 202 and Scottsdale Road, right, in the heart of ASU. And when that shopping center first was being built years ago, I noticed it. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, well, God, one day that'd be really cool to have a Dry Bar there. I think it's a great spot. It's a beautiful building. It's right on Tempe Town Lake, but it just was never the right time.
Yep.
Right. Timing is everything, right? Whether it's business, your wife, your husband, school, who knows, right?
Yep.
So when we got the call and we kind of looked at the economics of it and we knew that it would be tough.
Yeah.
We knew staffing would be an issue.
Right.
But we knew that long term, the investment would pay off.
Mm-hmm.
So we just, made the decision that we were going to jump with both feet in. And, we opened right before the holidays, which was great because we were so busy in all of our other locations that it gave more opportunity for our customers and new customers from down in Tempe to experience Dry Bar. Like I'll never forget, we have one of our regulars from day one that we opened in Scottsdale Quarter. She couldn't get in up there. And it was like the week of Thanksgiving. And one of our call center girls, because we have a local call center, said, oh, hey, well, do you want to go down to the new Tempe shop? If you can hop on the 101, it's really probably only like 20 minutes. And she was like, okay, I'll go. And I happened to be there when she got there. And she was like, Amy, honestly, it's not even that far. Right. She's like, it was a piece of cake. So, it's giving us the opportunity to, we jumped in and it wasn't just the new customers, it was giving more opportunity for our existing customers if we were booked somewhere else. So we just knew it would all work out. And, staffing, look, all around, it's a challenge in all of our locations, right? It's a challenge, I can look across the street here and it says now hiring, right? Yes. Everywhere you go. But we did put some things into place this year that have definitely helped out.
Good. And then, so with that, the staffing challenges, what is like a fully optimal, like if you had everybody you could hired at a dry bar.
Yeah.
What's that look like, and how many chairs are like per spot?
Yeah. So, I mean, every location's different. Our Phoenician location's the smallest with 6 chairs, and, but our Phoenix location has 14 chairs.
Sure.
So, it depends, but if we were fully staffed between stylists, managers, front desk people, which we call bartenders, we should probably have about 35 people per location easily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That is a lot.
It's a lot. Multiplied by 6, and then our call center staff. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But it's good. I love it. It keeps me young.
For sure. Absolutely.
I learn new things every day. I'm like, wait, what? What does that mean?
Oh yeah, for sure. What were some of the challenges? Like I mean, I moved here coming out of the pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. And so, what were some of those challenges that you guys faced? Because I'm sure you had to close for a while.
Oh yeah, I remember the day we closed. We were not being told we had to close yet.
Right.
And we were all watching the news that week, and we're like, what's happening here, right? And we use a software system for booking, and I could just see appointments canceling, right?
Sure.
People were just canceling. And I was getting very anxious, and I didn't feel right about making my staff touch people,
sure.
right? Because at this point, right?
No one knew, right?
Nobody knew what was going on. You were like, we were like wiping down your Amazon boxes at one point,
exactly.
right? So I called all my managers, and I said, guys, we're calling it 3 p.m. It looks like that's a good break. Anybody after that, if they want to come in before that, but we're calling it.
Sure.
And we just closed. We closed the doors. We put a note on the door and said, we're going to be closed. And it was probably, I think, about a week or so later that the governor shut us down, or shut beauty down, really. Right. And then we were closed for a while.
Yeah.
And that was tough.
For sure.
It was really tough. But you know what? It makes you stronger, I guess.
Absolutely.
We used the time, our managers, we kept them all on.
Yep.
And I remember, a bunch of us, once we kind of felt okay with it, we went in masks, and we kind of, each manager cleaned their shops, and we got, services, and we, really invested in our managers at that time. And they all did online learning on leadership and just different things to kind of keep their minds occupied.
Right.
Because we were all kind of like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And then over time, we did reopen when we were allowed to reopen, which was awesome. But, there were a lot of people that didn't want to come back. And,
sure.
And I don't blame them, because at that point we still didn't know there weren't vaccines. And then we did reclose again
really?
In July of 2020. It was July 2nd. I remember this because it was right before our anniversary. And it was spiking again in Arizona, and it was summer, and nobody knew what was going on. And we just closed again for about another 4 weeks. And then I'm happy to report, as of April 3rd, 2020, August 3rd, 2020, we did open back up.
Yep.
And, we've been open, knock on wood, since then. But it was tough, and we lost a lot of staff,
For
and
sure.
there were a lot of people that maybe had thought about going to cosmetology school that now, maybe I don't want to touch people, right? We're seeing the cosmetology schools fill back up, which is good.
Good.
But yeah, it's definitely been an interesting ride the past 2.5 years.
When you guys got to reopen everywhere else, what was your capacity? Did you have to put up partitions or anything like that?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. We had partitions between the shampoo bowls. We had partitions between the styling chairs. We had hand sanitizer everywhere. Mm-hmm. We had wipes. We had, you name it. It was it was crazy. People had, people had to wait outside, right? So we moved all of our waiting room furniture outside, and we brought people in one at a time. And, we asked that you didn't bring your kids with you, right? The only people allowed in the building were the people that had an appointment. So if you came, with your child, we were like, I'm so sorry. They're going to have to wait outside, or we can cancel your appointment today free of charge. But we just can only have a certain number of people in the building.
Yep.
So we were limited by capacity, we were limited by space. And then over times, as restrictions lifted, we've, changed. But, there's definitely been some learnings, right? I think with this whole past 2.5 years, there are things, I'm not going to say that are good, because COVID was not good.
Right.
But, do you have to fly to New York for a 2-hour meeting on a Tuesday?
Right.
Maybe you can do a Zoom, right? And, a lot of our customers, the partitions between the shampoo bowls, A lot of our shops still have those. You know, it's not so bad. It kind of creates, you know, nobody gets splashed, you know, hand sanitizer. Like we still have hand sanitizer everywhere.
Right.
You know, like that's not so bad.
No.
You know, like, so like there's some things and efficiencies that have come out of this as well. You know, like we used to try to have a breakfast with all of the managers, you know, like once a month, which then turned into maybe like hours long because then we talk about everybody's love life, which is good. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. But now we have a biweekly call. It's an hour. We get our business done. And then like we can go have fun. Like I'll take them to dinner, right? Like let's go have fun versus this lunch that, you know, we thought was going to be an hour and turns into like, you know, counseling on somebody's boyfriend, which I'm more than happy to counsel on boyfriends. So yeah. That's
funny. So the competition in that marketplace. Yeah. So I've seen some, I'm not going to name drop. Right. You know who they are.
Right.
We're talking about the Dry Bar today.
Right.
So when did those start popping up? Because clearly you were the first here and Dry Bar was the first here. So when did you start seeing them come to town?
You know, there's a couple concepts, like one in particular that, you know, popped up pretty much around the same time. And like I always say, imitation is the best form of flattery.
For sure.
Right. And you know, at Dry Bar, we do one thing and we do it best, and that's hair. Right. So a lot of these other concepts that have a similar take, they end up doing other services, right? Like makeup or hair or waxing. And we just stay true to our roots, no pun intended. You know, we just do hair, right? We've been asked time and time again, like, oh, would you ever bring in makeup services or this or that? And the answer is no.
Right.
We're not. Like, we want to just make women feel great with their hair, right? So like, yeah, we style it. Like we can also do deep conditioning treatment. We do scalp massages, we do braids, we do updos. So like, it's not like you just have to get a blowout, right? Like we have people come in all the time, especially during like the festival season. Like I just want to want my hair washed and get like those really cool, like, you know, boxer braids, right?
Sure.
And stuff like that. So, you know, I'm aware of it, right? I think you'd be silly if you're not aware of other concepts in your market.
Yeah.
But I don't let it bother me, right? You know, there's space for everybody. And, you know, I always say if you are, you know, giving your customers and your employees the best experience, you're going to do great.
Absolutely. And then have you seen like, so obviously COVID shut down. I know a thing like back home in rural America, like people were doing like backyard haircuts, right?
Yeah.
Like, so how many, you know, out of order questions here, but how many of your clients were reaching out to Amy Ross, like, can you come over and shampoo my hair?
You know, honestly, I don't feel like I really had a lot of that.
Really?
I really didn't. No, I mean, I don't know if any of my stylists had any of their customers.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I don't know, but I think people just knew that I wasn't going to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't going to risk my business for that.
Sure.
And trust me, like I have a lot of people I know that were like getting their hair colored and their nails done. And, you know, I was out there in my backyard, you know, with the acetone soaking off my gel nails, like, what's happening? But you know, I just wanted to play by the rules.
Yeah, absolutely. And that you always win when you do.
Yeah.
So we touched on it a little bit this year or earlier. Dry Bar Arizona was, and you were franchise partner of the year.
I was.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
Off. But go into that, like, how many dry bars nationwide are there?
Gosh, you know, over the past year, there's been some changes with Dry Bar. So they were acquired by WellBiz Brands, which is the franchisor that owns Amazing Lash. They own Elements and Fitness Together and Radiant Waxing, which formerly was Lunchbox Wax. So as that acquisition has come on board, now all of the shops, including the shops that were formerly corporate shops, are all franchise shops.
Okay.
So with that and with COVID, there were some shops that closed. But, you know, there's over 100 locations nationwide.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And how many different franchise partners, like, are people, like, you're pretty territorial, like it's just Dry Bar AZ, right?
Yeah.
Is that mostly the other people as well?
You know, up to this point, it has been. I think, you know, as we grow as a franchise brand, that could change.
Sure.
But, you know, I think those that want to develop their area and their market are given that opportunity.
Yeah. So we touched on it a little earlier as well, or you mentioned it, like, your philanthropy work and what you do to give back. I know you just did a pretty cool thing this weekend for one of them. So dancing with the Arizona Stars. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I was asked to do a local dancing with the Stars. It was so funny. I was like, you want me to do what? It was for the National Kidney Foundation of Arizona. And at first I was like, wait, what? I don't dance, right? I was never a cheerleader. I didn't dance when I was a little girl. I mean, maybe ballet when I was like 5, right? But I was not one of those kids that went on to dance, right? And I had a friend that just really talked me into it. And I was like, okay, it's for a good cause. And I like being philanthropic. And the event was supposed to happen early in the year. And I started practicing. They pair you up with a celebrity or a pro dancer, right? Okay. Because like I didn't know how to dance. And it's like ballroom dancing. Yeah. I'm like, what? I'm like, okay. I'm like, give me a glass of wine at a wedding and I can dance. But and January hit, and with Omicron, they postponed the event. And we were like, oh my gosh. So it got pushed to May, and we just had it this weekend, and it was a blast, right? I raised almost $30,000 for the National Kidney Foundation of Arizona, thanks to my amazing, amazing friends, families, customers, like just awesome people that have supported me. And it was a lot of fun. Yeah. It was a lot of fun. I did manage to practically break my toe on Thursday before Saturday. And it was a whole thing, but I keep beating myself up over it, but everybody says I did great. So it was a lot of fun, and just to be able to give back to the community. For sure. I just love doing that. Yeah.
And I think it obviously says a lot about you and Matt and what you guys do for them to reach out, to you. What was the practice schedule like? What goes into a local Dancing with the Stars?
I told my managers last week on Friday, I go, okay, guys, this is it. I will answer your phone calls now in the morning. So it was, obviously holidays were a little different, but typically it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday from like 8 to 9:30.
Really?
Holidays, we took a break, some weeks if I had a special meeting or something, it was 2 days a week, but it was pretty much 2 to 3 times a week for about an hour and a half every morning. Yeah, a lot.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And it was very interesting when we were at that meeting in Las Vegas where we got, the franchise award. One of our managers asked a great question, and they said, what is something that you did this year that has nothing to do with Dry Bar that you're proud of? And I thought that was really interesting. And I think that's interesting for everybody to think about, right? Yeah. Like, what's something in this past year, or maybe even during COVID or whatnot, that you've done or learned about yourself that you're proud of? Right. That doesn't relate to your, job. And I was like, you know what? I learned to dance. Yeah. Right. And like, I actually really like it. Yeah. Like, to the point where when my toe heals, Matt says, after the summer, Amy. Yeah. It's because dance lessons are not cheap. But I think I might dance again, right? Take some more lessons, do another competition, we'll see.
Yeah. Did you always do your lessons with your dancer then?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I did. Yeah. His name was Ivan. It's not was. He's
still his name.
It's still his name. Yeah. Yeah. And he's a great guy.
Awesome. That's so cool. How many people were in that, did that?
Yeah. Initially there were 10, but I think just due to COVID and other reasons, I don't even know why, there were 8, celebrity dancers. Okay. I don't really consider myself a celebrity.
Well, I tell everybody, I know you probably don't feel like it, but I think here too, a lot of people know you and know the brand, right? You guys do news segments quite a bit. Yeah. How does all of that stuff come up? Like, do the news stations just reach out to Amy and say, hey, let's get something on?
It depends, right? Early on, it was sort of some of that. And then, I did have a great local PR and marketing firm, Serendipit, and Melissa is awesome over there. But I'll be very candid, like, they're awesome. But at the end of last year and the beginning of this year, I had to, talk about making business decisions. I didn't have enough staff. I didn't have any appointments available. Right. So I was like, okay, well, the money I'm spending on them, it doesn't make sense because I don't have any availability because I don't have enough staff. Sure. Right. So we had to reallocate that money towards, we hired actually a full-time hiring manager and recruiter, right? So at some point I would hope to bring them back on, but right now, as we're staffing back up, that was a decision we had to make. But they were awesome at getting us, great segments with the TVs and whatnot. And like, honestly, I still have somebody that, used to be on their team that does our social media now, which is great. And, it's a lot of just being out in the market, you know, and people like, oh, I know Amy. And, I'm always happy to talk to anybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I got paid $50 once to keep my mouth shut.
Really?
Yeah. My dad. Yeah. Driving from Albuquerque to Santa Fe. He said, can you be quiet even for an hour? And I said, I don't know. He goes, I'll pay you $50. Yeah, swear. True story. So I did it.
You were also one of the kids who said talks too much on the report cards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bingo.
I used to be bribed like that as well by my parents.
Oh, I could totally be bribed.
Yep. I was good at that.
Yeah.
That's so funny. So as I build the show, a little bit about it is like, helping people do things that they're scared of, right? Or like going through life, or just like, hey, maybe they listen to this podcast and they take a chance. So we talked a little bit about obviously COVID was a big obstacle.
Yeah.
But from day one of bringing Dry Bar to Arizona to now, what outside? I mean, we could talk about staffing. That's obviously affected everybody, right?
Right.
But what's some big obstacles that you've had to deal with just inside the business side?
Right. I think you learn a lot along the way, right? Like when I look at the things I did when we opened Scottsdale Quarter, 11 years ago versus Tempe, a year ago, or not even a year ago, being aware of like, things in like leases, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh wait, I didn't know that, like what's percentage rent, and like, does it really matter or doesn't it matter? Right. Like really understanding and having somebody by your side and an advocate, almost like a business coach. Like early on, I was sort of naive, I would say.
Yeah.
But I feel like even now with each shop that we open, I learn something new every time and grow from it. Right. Yeah. So I think some of the obstacles early on were like, maybe was like, oh shoot, I didn't realize that deal term maybe wasn't the best for me.
Right.
But it's crazy. Like we just re-signed another 10-year lease at Scottsdale Quarter. Like that's crazy to me that like, and we're in the process of, negotiating our second 10 years at our Phoenix location right now. So, I just think that some of the obstacles are what you don't know.
Sure.
Right. You don't know that they're your obstacle until you kind of are like, oh,
right.
Didn't really, because let's have an honest moment. Does everybody read all,
no
300 pages of a legal document? You
scroll to the end and you hit accept.
And you're like, give it to your attorney and they highlight where the problems are. And then you're like, but wait, remember? So you probably should read it all. Right. Probably should. I'm getting better at that.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. Read it all.
Read it all. Yeah. That would be my advice. Read it all.
What's been some stuff that have helped you like personal growth wise? I think everybody, obviously your leadership skills are incredible. And that's what I love about people is I've spent a lot of time, trying to be a great leader in my own right. And so what's some stuff that has helped you over, push yourself to just, continuously grow?
Yeah, that's a great question. My background being that I worked, for the Estee Lauder companies, right? So I worked on the Clinique brand. I worked on Bobbi Brown. I worked on Prescriptives. So many great brands. And I think that I had a great foundation from that, right? Mm-hmm. Like I really, when I did that, I didn't know if I wanted to go the sales or the education route. And I was given the opportunity to do either. And I had a great foundation from that. And I think that I brought a lot of those skills with me into Dry Bar, right? And so I've, been able to work with my team and I love seeing them grow, right? Yeah. So I'm like, okay, how can I help them grow, right? Mm-hmm. So like when we were closing COVID, right? I went to our HR company. I'm like, okay, what can we do, right? Like, okay, we came up, they have this whole portal, right? So each day, they took 1 or 2 classes on leadership, right? And we've done the same thing, like I'm trying to read things and things are always changing, right? Mm-hmm. Like when we started this, 11 years ago, the employee was very different than the employee that we have today.
For sure.
The millennials are a real thing, know, and it's fine. They're who they are, right? So the way in which, you have to flex your style, right? So I think that being a good leader, you have to really learn that flex, right?
Yep.
Like if I have a stylist who is more my contemporary, right? Versus somebody that, I'm old enough to be their mom, like they're both great employees, but like
Right.
I may talk to them differently depending on how they talk to me, right? Not up, down, round, just like the way in which you connect, right? Yep. So I think that being a good leader, you have to learn what drives people and how you're going to connect. I think, that one of the greatest successes is that all of our managers started out as a stylist or a bartender, right?
That's incredible.
And, like Eileen, who is my right hand and my left hand, my right foot, my left foot, she's my everything. She started with us day one as a front desk bartender, and she's been a manager. She's managed multiple shops. She's our district manager, and I'm so proud of her. And to see the growth that she's had over the past, 11 years is just, it's awesome.
Yeah, that's incredible. That is a testament to you and the brand, especially is that people come and then they stay. Right?
Yeah.
That you don't find that in a lot of workspaces for whatever reason. And especially in this current market where there is opportunity, which I'm sure you have like a non-compete clause, but there's opportunity for people to go other places. So
I treated them really well in Vegas.
There you
what
go.
happens in Vegas stays in
there
Vegas.
You go.
We had a good time.
That helps
but,
a lot.
But it's true. Like, you go to a conference, right? And, we didn't go to I didn't take them to Taco Bell, right? Well, at one point we kind of wanted to go to Taco Bell, but, we had fun. We went to good dinners. Like we, just had a great time together. And I think that if you can relate to your people and bond with your people in a social situation in conjunction with a work situation, it really builds loyalty.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of my favorite quotes in a leadership perspective is Bruce Arians, the old head coach of the Cardinals, now with the Bucks, right? He's always said, football isn't hard, people are.
Oh, hands down.
Right? So insert, anything.
Absolutely.
But people are hard.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like you have a good grasp on that, and that's great to hear for people. So kind of my last questions here as we wind down. What is some advice you can give someone who has doubts on taking that leap? I'm sure when you're telling everybody what Dry Bar is, I'm sure there's a million people resisting you on, Amy, that's not a good idea.
Oh,
right?
yeah. I remember because when we were about to go down this path, I had the opportunity to go back to my old job, basically. And I knew what was behind that door, right?
Right.
It was a Ford Taurus, nothing wrong with Ford Taurus, right? But it was the company car, my 401k. Like I knew what that looked like, right? Yep. And I just felt like I needed something different.
Sure.
That leap of faith, right? So I think you have to trust your gut, right? Like I just had a good feeling about this. And, back then, nobody knew what Dry Bar was at all. Like there was one location in Brentwood, California. That was it. But, I have naturally curly hair, right? So like I know how it can change a woman's the way she feels about herself when her hair looks great, right? Like for years, and this is how I explained it to my parents, right? I said, look, you don't know whether I have a pedicure right now, right? Like, and this was the time when like all the mani and pedi was now a necessity. It wasn't a treat, right? I said, you have no idea if I have a pedicure. My feet are under the table. We're sitting at dinner, right? I said, but if I have a blowout, right? And the way I feel about myself. I said, I just think this is something that's really going to become like something that's really going to make women feel great about themselves because, what we're selling is happiness and confidence,
For
right?
sure.
It's a blowout, but like we're really giving women happiness and confidence. And if you think back to like, my grandmother's generation, they used to go and get their hair set once a week, right? Like get it set and their little rollers. It's kind of today's version of that, right? So I think the one thing I can say is just trust your gut, but be smart, right? Make sure you have good counsel. Make sure, that you've got good people around you. And, I have, an amazing husband. Matt's
Shout
awesome.
out Matt.
Shout out Matt. Exactly. He says I don't give him enough shout outs. But, like at one point, I was like, okay, I'm like, I need you to, change a hair trap, and then it got to like, okay, I need you to run all the finances, you know? So, we're in this together, wholeheartedly because where we've gotten, I could not do it without him. But you have to have good people around you. And I would say, really trust your gut and think like, is this something that is needed? Right? Like who would have thought a manicure or pedicure really is ever needed, right?
Right.
I mean, and arguably, is it? Is it blah? I mean, I think it is.
Right. It's all about perspective.
It's all
right?
about perspective, yeah. And surround yourself with good people.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with good people. That for sure is something I would definitely say.
Yeah. Well, I love it. I appreciate that advice. I know that people are going to take away from this. And that's part of the reason that I wanted to have you on is I think that your story is incredible and you're going to target a different demographic that other people might not hear that. And there's people everywhere that can be drawn to that and that perspective and take those chances. I mean, there's probably somebody in rural Midwest that's going to listen. That's like, I'm in on that, and they got to take that chance and go somewhere.
Well, yeah. I mean, and like, here's the deal. Like, dry bar's opening everywhere, right? So like, if there's somebody out there that, listens to this and, she's a hairstylist, like some of our franchise partners, they were hairstylists, right? And they got involved. So you just never know. And, that's one of the great things is as we've transitioned over the years, things change, but if you're open to change and you can, flow with it, you're going to be successful. Absolutely.
Well, Amy, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your time so much. It was great to talk to you. Thank you, everybody, for listening at home. As always, like, comment, share, subscribe, unsubscribe, subscribe again, and rate us 5 stars. Thank you so much.